Welcome to the Uncanny Valley podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're embarking on a journey into, well, a collection of narratives that really do feel like whispers from the edge of reality. We're talking about a series of unsettling events spanning just a few years, actually, from about 2016 to 2020. Some people have started calling this period the spiral. It's this time where the mundane, the everyday just seem to fray, revealing something, well, something far more sinister underneath.
Indeed. And this spiral, it wasn't just like a string of bad luck or isolated incidents of human cruelty, though there was plenty of that.
Right.
Those who observed it closely, they understood it as maybe a bitter interregnum, a momentary spasm of just inexplicable occurrences. But maybe more importantly, they saw it as a faltering first step.
A first step towards what?
Towards, well, preparation for much larger, much stranger revelations to come. These aren't just stories about, how awful people can be. They're hints of something deeper, a more desperate kind of cruelty maybe running through the human psyche itself.
And possibly beyond that.
And possibly, something far beyond our current understanding. Think of it as like the universe stretching, revealing these unseen muscles we never knew were there.
Okay. So our mission today is to try and unpack 4 distinct narratives from this period. They seem separate, but they're also deeply interconnected.
Right, that's the fascinating part.
They really are. Each one reveals a different kind of terrifying facet of this unsettling time. We'll be peeling back the curtain of the everyday, the familiar stuff, to expose these ancient, maybe terrifying gears churning just beneath the surface. We'll explore how our cutting-edge technology, our own sort of inherent human corruption, and even the landscape of our own minds can become these unwitting gateways, or maybe sometimes intentional gateways to the uncanny.
Pulling back the veil.
Exactly. Pulling back the veil on the subtle ways reality itself can just unravel. So let's begin.
Let's do it.
The first scenario we're delving into today is what's been ominously referred to as God's eye. Now, it starts with something pretty familiar to all of us these days, the rapid rise of widespread surveillance technology.
Right.
But as you'll hear, it quickly veers into territory that is just, well, utterly extraordinary and deeply unsettling.
That's right. So to set the scene, imagine Reno, Nevada. This is back in 2017.
Okay.
And here, we encountered this company called Persistent Vigil Imaging Solutions. Now, they weren't just dabbling in surveillance. They had, by all accounts, pretty much perfected wide area surveillance on a scale that was just unprecedented at the time.
How so? What were they doing?
Well, they're high-altitude aircraft, right? They were capable of taking these staggering 1.8 gigapixel snapshots.
1.8 gigapixels.
Yeah. And not just, one picture here and there. We're talking 2 per second. A continuous high-resolution feed of a huge area. And it wasn't just limited to daylight. They could even capture highly detailed infrared images at night. So basically, darkness wasn't a barrier anymore. They could see everything.
Okay, that's already impressive, maybe alarming. But one point that really jumped out at me from the sources was the origin of this tech. It wasn't just some commercial invention, was it?
Oh, not at all. No, this wasn't some, independent civilian innovation cooked up in a garage. This was technology developed directly from highly advanced military applications.
Like what?
We're talking about programs like the U.S. Army's Constant Hawk from the mid-2000s. That was designed for persistent surveillance in, conflict zones.
Right. Iraq, Afghanistan.
Exactly. And then there was the DARPA-funded Gorgon Stare system.
Gorgon Stare? Sounds ominous.
It kind of was. To give you a clearer picture, imagine a system that could stitch together live feeds from literally hundreds of discrete cameras. Think of it like turning an entire city into a single, continuous, high-definition panorama. And this wasn't just passive viewing. It was compiled by advanced AI, neural network software, that then feeds that real-time intelligence directly to Predator and Reaper drones.
So it's actively analyzing and directing actions.
Precisely. It wasn't just observing. It was creating this constantly updated living map of activity. So this powerful tech, originally honed for war zones, well, it quickly made its way to American streets.
How was it sold?
It was initially pitched to civilian government agencies, FBI, state troopers, local police, as a way to, and I quote, catch the bad guys before they have time to crack a beer.
Charming.
Yeah. And it boasted an alarming facial recognition accuracy of 78%, which is,
high, but also leaves room for error.
A lot of error.
Yeah.
But as the records chillingly show, it wasn't just used for catching criminals. It was also used to identify political protesters. And not just them, but everyone they knew, thanks to cross-referencing with social media connections.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with unprecedented and frankly alarming detail. It wasn't merely a tool for law enforcement. It became an instrument of pervasive social mapping.
So essentially, it's not just a powerful zoom lens we're talking about. It's an omnipresent, intelligent eye that basically doesn't miss a thing.
Pretty much.
And that's already disturbing enough, right? But what truly twists this into the uncanny, into our territory here, is how it became connected to this very specific, almost spiritual obsession. How did a system designed for, human agencies become co-opted or maybe even influenced by something as profoundly personal and dark as the obsession of one individual, this guy, Anthony Cooper?
That's exactly where the narrative takes this sharp, unexpected turn. This powerful government panopticon, this eye in the sky, it wasn't solely a tool for human agencies. It became entangled with the deep, almost spiritual obsession of this reclusive genius named Anthony Cooper.
Tell us about him.
Cooper was apparently a child genius, a polyglot, incredible command of languages from a really young age, but he never really found a conventional place in society. His early life was marked by this relentless search for control, trying to make sense of what he saw as a brutal, chaotic world. And that search initially manifested as this attempt to connect with what he called God, but a very specific idea God, a distant, maybe cruel power he felt had abandoned him.
Right. So where did the military tech come in?
Well, he joined the Air Force. He ended up serving under a Colonel Clyde Mock. And it was there, in the Air Force, that he actually built much of the early code for persistent vigil.
The surveillance company.
The very same. Code that would chillingly far outlive his time there. But Cooper's real motivation, it wasn't about tech fortunes or national security. It was, as he put it, to sift realities and find God again.
Find the God that abandoned him.
Exactly. To understand why this perceived deity had left him, and maybe, just maybe, to force a new connection.
So he lays the groundwork for this incredible surveillance system, this digital eye, and then he just pivots dramatically. What pushed him towards ancient esoteric knowledge?
Well, after leaving the Air Force in 2013, he basically abandoned a conventional tech career. He found work as a linguist, which makes sense given his background.
Yeah.
And this allowed him to fully immerse himself in his real passion, delving into ancient occult texts. It started as a hobby, apparently, but it quickly became his ultimate all-consuming goal.
What kind of texts?
He found what he really needed, or thought he needed, in Ibrahim al-Tariq's Geographic and Spiritual Alignment with Jannah.
I haven't heard of that one.
No, it's pretty obscure. For anyone listening, this isn't your typical celestial chart. It's a 7th century astronomy text from Persia, yeah. But it's deeply steeped in esoteric lore. Ostensibly, it's about communing with the divine presence.
But Cooper saw something else.
Cooper read between the lines. He saw it as a veiled instruction manual for connecting with something far older and far more alien than any conventional deity.
Okay, wow.
So he meticulously translated key passages from this text and other obscure studies he found into his own sort of field manual. And he gave this really ominous title, Remote Stare, a field manual for higher dimensional reconnaissance.
Higher dimensional reconnaissance. That's
Isn't it? And in this manual, he claimed to have discovered a ritual he chillingly dubbed the all-seeing eye.
The mechanics of this ritual, as they're outlined in the sources, are truly disturbing. It's simple, in a way, but horrific in scope. How exactly did Cooper believe this all-seeing eye worked, and how did he actually put it into practice?
Cooper's theory was pretty out there. He believed that if a watcher on high, like one of Persistent Vigil's drones, constantly feeding it visual data, if that watcher recognized a killing, and simultaneously an operator, or maybe any observer really, though Cooper initially didn't realize that part, if they recognized a specific predetermined pattern emerging in a sequence of these killings,
Then what?
then it would essentially make the drone itself the eye of God. It would become a focal point, a lens for some ancient extra-dimensional entity.
How could he possibly arrange that?
Well, that's where it gets really dark.
Yeah.
Cooper exploited his old code access within Persistent Vigil. He still had backdoors. Yeah. And he leveraged contacts from apparently a black sheep uncle involved with Mexican cartels.
Seriously? Cartels?
Seriously. He arranged a series of ritualistic murders. He provided his cartel contacts with invaluable live intelligence on shifting border security. A hell of a resume, as one source dryly notes.
In exchange for it?
In exchange for their gruesome services, yeah. He gave the Sicarios these incredibly detailed, baroque, and totally inflexible requirements, about the time, the place, the technique of the killings.
But not the victims.
No, he emphasized that the victims' identities were entirely irrelevant. Didn't matter at all. Just the act, the pattern. And in the very first killing, the sicarios, maybe out of some perverse curiosity, or maybe they understood something about the ritual's dark nature, they actually worked occult sigils in blood at the scene.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that single act inadvertently set in motion this chain of cosmic horror far beyond anyone's control, especially Cooper's.
So, the first killing was precise, meant to trigger this all-seeing eye. But your research points to a profound flaw in Cooper's understanding of his own ritual. What went wrong? What happened when these breaches actually started?
This is where Cooper's brilliance, his genius, was completely overshadowed by his profound misunderstanding of the forces he was trying to mess with.
How so?
Well, he believed his ritual needed precise execution for each sacrifice to work, to maintain the connection. But he didn't realize its terrifying flaw. That first killing, with those meticulously drawn occult sigils in blood, that was enough.
Enough to do what?
Enough to open the door. A door that, it seems, he then couldn't close. After that initial act, any subsequent sacrifice, regardless of the specifics, just opened a random, uncontrolled connection to, well, the other world.
So it wasn't targeted anymore?
Not at all. It was chaos. And the drones, these unwitting eyes of God circling overhead, they started to show these inexplicable glitches.
Glitches, like software bugs.
That's what they thought at first. Nora Bridget, a sharp programmer at Persistent Vigil, she described them as these brief, single-frame anomalies. Instead of the familiar streets of Reno, the cameras would sometimes capture glimpses of, well, horrifying, alien landscapes.
Alien landscapes.
That's what she reported. Colonel Mark, Cooper's old boss, and his VP, a guy named Rusty Lodell, they tried desperately to filter these glitches out from the feed going to the Reno Police Department. They were terrified it would compromise the system's validity, their big contract.
Shut up.
Pretty much. But the damage, both to their system and arguably to reality itself, was already done, irrevocably. The veil had been torn.
It sounds like a slow, terrifying unraveling. Let's maybe walk through those specific manifestations you mentioned earlier, because each one seems to escalate, giving us a clearer, though still horrifying, picture of what was actually happening on the ground, or rather from the sky.
Exactly. The breaches didn't take long to manifest, and they just got progressively stranger, more undeniable. May 21st, 2017. This is the very first one linked. A man named Pena. It was a ritualistic decapitation, and the sicarios used those deliberate sigils in blood. This act seemed to initiate the whole horrifying sequence, like striking the first discordant note in some kind of cosmic symphony. It set the stage for the uncontrolled breaches that followed.
Okay, the trigger event.
Precisely.
Yeah.
May 25, 2017. Just 4 days later, Geraldo Calderon. He was a retired Mexican journalist, apparently an old foe of the cartel involved. He was found hacked up and burned near an ancient Washoe stone circle.
Near a stone circle? That feels significant.
It does, doesn't it? The drone, our unwitting watcher, it logged the killing, and then totally unexpectedly, it just vanished from the system. Poof, gone. It reappeared moments later, but visibly damaged. And this wasn't like a software error message. It was physical degradation, as if something from whatever dimension it glimpsed had physically lashed out at the drone. That was one of the early, really undeniable signs that something was terribly wrong, far beyond a simple bug.
Physical damage from a glitch. Wow.
Yeah, May 27, 2017. 2 days later, Doris Sandoval, a casino cashier, hacked to death during what looked like a robbery, but again, arranged by the sicarios. The drone observed, vanished, seemed to forget the event in its logs, and returned, again with inexplicable damage, like the data was wiped or corrupted during the vanishing act. And the associated starry glitch that Nora Bridget, the programmer, later isolated from this event, it showed not the familiar Reno night sky, but an arrangement of reflected stars.
Reflect in what?
It wasn't clear, but the pattern was identifiable as the night sky seen from Astro.
Astro? Where's that?
It's a star system, approximately 430 light-years away.
Light-years. So the drone briefly saw another solar system.
That's what the data suggested. Imagine the sheer cosmic scale of that accidental glimpse, a window opening to a point in space so impossibly distant.
That's staggering.
It really is. May 30, 2017. Ludmila Baraclaw, a retired chorus girl, murdered in her home. The drone returned damaged again, this time as if by exposure to temperatures far below freezing, which make no sense at high altitude over Nevada in May.
No kidding.
And the glitch this time, it formed a message. spelled out in countless rocks on some alien landscape.
Yeah.
Help Rancho Manor.
A message from the glitch.
A desperate plea, seemingly not from Reno but from another dimension, pointing to a location back in Reno. And disturbingly, this killing also led investigators to discover Nora Bridget's corpse.
The programmer, what happened?
She had vanished. It appears she somehow fell into the very glitches she was studying. Absorbed by the unnatural revelations she was trying to comprehend, she became a casualty of the unfolding chaos.
Oh my God, that's horrific.
Truly. June 2, 2017. This was the culmination, the final act. With the murder of either Sadie Berry or her son Coyote, the sources are a bit unclear. On Rancho Manor Drive, the place named in the glitch message.
Rancho Manor.
Yeah. The ritual, as Cooper designed it, was completed. This final act was intended by Cooper to take him, personally, to the presence of God.
Did it work?
Well, in a way, it did. It took him, along with the drone, not to any conventional deity, but, as the analysis suggests, to the one served by the ritual's ancient inventors. Some other entity entirely.
Did they come back?
The drone returned after a second. But Cooper did not. He was gone.
And the glitch.
The infinite glitch, they called it. A witness to this final event described experiencing this disorder of luminous globes, reflecting flickering realities in their 4 perceptible dimensions. Whole universes erupting from impossible surfaces.
4 dimensions.
Yeah. This profound, mind-bending vision hinted strongly at the presence of Yog-Sothoth.
Yog-Sothoth. That name comes up in certain kinds of fiction.
And certain occult texts.
Oh.
Often referred to as the gate and the key, a cosmic entity that knows and is the gateway to all time and space, embodying the very fabric of reality beyond our 3 dimensions.
That's utterly terrifying. So what's the singular most alarming lesson from this specific narrative that you, the listener, should maybe carry forward from this?
We have this advanced surveillance tech, right? Designed to give humans a godlike view, and manipulated by a brilliant but frankly unhinged individual obsessed with ancient occult rituals.
Right.
All converging to tear literal holes in reality. And the consequences are terrifyingly personal, as we saw with Nora Bridget. She vanishes into the very glitches she was studying, absorbed by these unnatural revelations.
Yeah.
The idea that a machine, just given enough visual acuity and processing power, could literally become the eye of God for some ancient entity, one that pulls back the veil on distant stars and impossible dimensions. It's deeply unsettling.
It absolutely is. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That our creations, the things we build for control, can be twisted to purposes far beyond our understanding or even our ability to control them anymore.
And this raises such an important question, especially now in our increasingly monitored world. Where does human intent end? And something else, something other, begin to interpret and exploit these systems.
Yeah.
The glitches, those terrifying windows into alien landscapes, hints of cosmic entities, they suggest that the death of privacy, as some call it, might have unleashed unnatural revelations far beyond anything the designers of persistent vigil, or indeed any human, could have possibly imagined.
So what happens when the tools we build for control become gateways for forces that defy all control?
Exactly. It forces us to reconsider the true cost of omnipresence. What are we really inviting in?
The chilling conclusion from God's eye is just how easily our tools for control can become conduits for unimaginable chaos. But what if the vector for the uncanny isn't technology at all? What if it's something far more organic, something we might unknowingly ingest? That brings us to our second narrative, God's breath. This one plunges us into a world where a seemingly innocuous product, marijuana, becomes a vector for something ancient and horrifying. A slow, insidious corruption of both body and mind.
Right. We now enter the world of Avalon Gardens. This is a Colorado-based marijuana company, and publicly they specialized in things like distillates and extracts. High-potency stuff.
Okay, sounds like a standard cannabis business in Colorado.
On the surface, maybe. But this wasn't your average, benign cannabis venture. It was actually a subsidiary of a larger corporation called Genetic Agricultural Products, Inc., or GAP.
GAP, Inc. Yeah.
And this company had a profoundly shadowy past. And its leaders, well, the sources described them chillingly as inhuman predatory doppelgangers.
Doppelgangers, like not human.
That's the implication in the reports. Apparently, a covert organization known as Delta Green, which is dedicated to fighting these kinds of uncanny threats, had been battling GAP's leaders for years.
What did Delta Green know?
They knew that these entities, whatever they were, not only bolstered GAP's legitimate products with unnatural infusions, but they used their enormous, often illicit profits for human sacrifices and cruel rituals.
Sacrifices.
Yes, often disguised, apparently, as the usual depravities of the international business community, lavish parties, unfortunate accidents, that sort of thing. These inhuman entities operated with near impunity, their vast wealth and political influence shielding them, allowing their horrors to just fall off the radar of those who might effectively fight them.
That's terrifying. And this gets chillingly specific, doesn't it?
Well,
Moving beyond just corporate evil to literal body horror.
yeah.
You mentioned a Denver prisoner earlier, Radomir Reznik.
Yes.
After using an Avalon Gardens product, he was found vomiting up an alien worm in his jail cell. The details of that medical report, there's something out of a nightmare, aren't they?
Absolutely horrific. The medical report detailed a pathology that just stopped making sense above his chest. Okay, there was fluid accumulation in his bronchioles, like the worst case of low-point pneumonia imaginable. And stage 4 carcinoma growing impossibly fast, that's bad enough.
Yeah.
But everything below his chest, what they call the regurgitated blood eagle, it was just gone, vanished, consumed from the inside.
Gone.
It's a stark, visceral introduction to what Avalon Gardens was truly cultivating. These things called the Y strains.
E strain.
Yeah. These aren't just potent cannabis variants. They're biologically warped products, living conduits for something ancient and hungry.
Biologically warped feels like an understatement, given some of the descriptions in the sources. What exactly defined these Y strains? What made them different?
Well, the Y strains, they had designations like Y2, Y3, Y4, Y5, Y6. They were grotesque perversions of the cannabis plant, like Y2 plants. They were found to be contaminated with living chimeric insect legs actually twitching among the trichome hairs on the buds.
Insect legs. Living.
Living, twitching legs. Y4 had these white larval pods smattered across each bud, looking like they were ready to burst. And Y6 plants grew into these hanging vines that rained back down over the grow beds like an alien jungle. They were pushing against the ceiling of the grow house, their thin vines possessing this unsettling, almost conscious mobility, reaching, grasping.
Like something out of science fiction horror.
Exactly.
And the high from these strains, it wasn't just a powerful psychedelic experience, was it? The sources talk about a narcotic communion. What does that mean?
Precisely. The high these Y strains delivered was far from recreational. It's described as a narcotic communion with Shub-Niggurath.
Shub-Niggurath, another name from occult lore, often depicted as what? The black goat with 1,000 young.
That's the one. A monstrous fertile deity associated with chaotic fecundity and primal horror. This wasn't about mere psychoactive effects. It was about feeding on the memories of victims, with the plants themselves absorbing these experiences from their human soil.
Human soil. Oh, God.
Yeah. Users reported experiencing brief dysphoria and these kinesthetic sensations of another body, a disturbing, alien, sort of bifurcated memory. Feeling someone else's skin, a fleeting glimpse of the absorbed consciousness taken from the plant's anonymized victims.
So you're experiencing echoes of the people sacrificed.
That's the implication. And heavy users, the ones who kept chasing the high, trying to outspend their tolerance, they often suffered intense night terrors, fantasies that shifted rapidly from Cheech and Chong to Seven in a matter of weeks. Their altered states were opening them up to these incomprehensible horrors that just clung to their minds, merging with their own identities.
What's truly fascinating here, and deeply disturbing, is the sheer audacity and calculated cruelty of this corporate cult. How did Avalon Gardens and its leaders manage to cultivate not just these monstrous plants, but also a steady stream of human sacrifices, apparently right under everyone's noses?
It's a masterclass in sinister manipulation, really.
Yeah.
Dakota Knight, he was the CEO of Avalon Gardens. And his father, Bill Knight, who ran a Knight Chevrolet dealership and sat on influential political action committees.
Connected.
Very. They used social media, shrewd business acumen, and their deeply entrenched community ties to cultivate not just the plants, but this steady stream of human sacrifices. Dakota, for instance, presented himself as this hip millennial VC bro, a fitness and lifestyle influencer on social media. He used his handle, at Avalon Strong, to lure unwitting victims, leveraging their trust, their desire for connection, for fitness tips, whatever.
Exploiting influencer culture.
Exactly. And his father, Bill, showed a truly chilling breadth of predatory tactics. He even catfished a 56-year-old widow named Marjorie Linbottom over Christian Mingle.
Christian Mingle, that's incredibly cynical.
Shows the range, doesn't it? Across generations, social strata, they were incredibly adept at exploiting the vulnerabilities of modern society, online and off.
And these victims, people like Shanna Edwards, Benjamin Molnar, and Marjorie Linbottom, They weren't just killed. Their bodies were used in this truly grotesque way as literal human fertilizer. It's a visceral cycle of life and death, but utterly perverted.
That's exactly right. Their remains were fed directly into the hydroponic root systems of the Y4 and Y5 crops in grow houses A and B. It was a conscious, calculated decision to integrate the biological essence of their victims directly into the product they were selling.
Feeding the plants with people.
Yes. And the Y6 crop in grow house C, the one described as an alien jungle of hanging vines, it was literally overtaken barely a week after planting, fed by Linbottom's riot of rot in the roots. It's a truly grotesque organic cycle where human tragedy nourished something unspeakably alien.
The company even had this sports complex, the Valley Dirtland Sports Complex, built right next to the grow operation. That seems way too coincidental. Was there a specific darker purpose for that location?
Oh, absolutely. The sports complex was strategically built right next to the grow operation. The constant roar of dirt bike engines, all those screaming fans and machines.
Yeah.
It was deliberately designed to drown the screams of his victims. It provided a perfect acoustic cover for their atrocities. And this facility, it housed a secret, horrifying space they actually called the Reaping World.
The Reaping World.
Yeah. Here, the memories, the consciousness of the victims were absorbed by the plants. These absorbed ghosts, as the sources term them, then cross-pollinated, circulating through the air ducts that connected the experimental grow houses.
So when users inhaled the Y strain,
They weren't just getting high, they were experiencing these stolen, fragmented, bifurcated memories of the sacrifices.
yeah,
And as a final horrifying touch, the Y6 plants, the jungle vines, they produce what were called
pollinators, like bees.
Not quite. Swarms of invisible creatures, described as impossibly thin, transparent entities that just consumed anything they touched, leaving behind perfectly clean bone.
Invisible consumers, how do you fight that?
Almost impossible to stop. Only flamethrowers proved effective against their ravenous swarms, apparently.
That's a truly horrifying thought, that the very act of seeking an altered state could lead not just to a mental trip, but to a physical and spiritual consumption by some ancient entity. What does this all mean for you, the listener, for the world we think we know?
It's a terrifying vision, isn't it? How something as common, as normalized now as recreational drugs, can be twisted into a vector for cosmic horror, where the pursuit of an altered state becomes a direct conduit for something truly alien.
Yeah.
It's not just about what you ingest anymore, but what that ingestion allows to ingest you, body, memory, everything. The Knights weren't just drug kingpins profiting from addiction. They were literal priests of a consumption cult, feeding an ancient, unknowable entity with human lives and stolen consciousness.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily our seemingly innocuous pleasures can be corrupted, twisted into instruments of cosmic terror.
And it raises this important question for all of us. How easily can those lines blur between addiction, corporate greed, and ancient, incomprehensible evil?
Right.
And what are the implications when our collective pursuit of altered states, or really any indulgence, inadvertently opens us up to things far beyond our comprehension, making us both the consumers and ultimately the consumed? It's a stark warning about seeking escape at any cost, isn't it?
From corporate cults literally thriving on human sacrifice, we shift our focus now to something maybe even more disturbing: the dark heart of a corrupted system. Our next narrative, God's Law, takes us to Los Angeles. Here, the very institutions meant to protect and uphold justice are themselves sources of profound terror and, as we'll see, gateways to something deeply unnatural.
Yes, Los Angeles County. Well, the sources are pretty clear. It has a long, well-documented history of deputy gangs within its sheriff's department.
Deputy gangs, you mean like cliques?
Oh, far beyond cliques. These aren't just isolated incidents of bad apples. We're talking about sophisticated, deeply entrenched criminal networks operating within the LASD. Groups with names like the Slugs, the Linwood Vikings, the Banditos.
Those sound like biker gangs, not deputies.
The parallels are strong. They've operated with near impunity under the badge for decades. Their activities, according to reports, span drug dealing inside county jails, running smuggling rings for steroids, racketeering, and even murder.
Murder by deputies.
The sources suggest their atrocities are said to put many actual drug cartels to shame, both in terms of sheer brutality and the impunity with which they operate. And what's maybe even more chilling is that the system itself, through massive taxpayer-funded lawsuit settlements and endless political maneuvering, has often enabled them.
How enable?
Multiple sheriffs have been elected while openly sporting the gang tattoos associated with these groups. It's an undeniable public symbol of the corruption, The depravity's open, it's known, and yet, fundamentally, nothing is truly done. It's a deeply broken foundation.
And within this fertile ground of human depravity, a system so broken and self-serving, something truly alien took root. Is that where Franklin Dyer comes in, the serial killer known as the Southside Tiger?
Exactly. Dyer's journey began with a profound psychotic break back in late 2013. After that, he became absolutely convinced he was destined to become a true magi, his words, and speak to the alien gods.
Oh, being gods.
Yes. He fixated on decoding an alchemical formula he found in Ludwig Prinz's terrifying occult tome, Gewürm's Mysteries.
Mysteries of the Worm? That sounds unpleasant.
It is. For listeners who might not be familiar, this is a fictional grimoire, often described in horror literature as a dark compendium of forbidden knowledge, cosmic entities, ancient blasphemous secrets. From his pages, Dyer created this poisonous alchemical concoction he called the pledge Dram.
What was the goal? Why the poison?
His ultimate goal was to interrogate what he called worms from without, or in the book's apparent pseudo-German, das jenseitige Gewürm. Yeah. He understood them to be interdimensional entities, parasites maybe, that lurked just beyond human perception. His journal, which was recovered later, details these gruesome kills, amputating victims' tongues, other horrific tortures, all in this desperate, mad quest to understand these entities and what he called the limits of the human scream. It was like a scientific endeavor rooted in pure madness.
So what happened to Dyer?
Tragically, or perhaps inevitably, Dyer was eventually killed during a tactical raid by law enforcement. But his journal, with all his mad notes and, crucially, the alchemical formula for the pledge Dram, it didn't just disappear into an evidence locker.
Oh, no.
No. It was stolen from the scene by a Sergeant Anton Gully, a primary enforcer for the infamous Slugs deputy gang we mentioned earlier.
The deputy gang got the madman's occult journal.
Yes. And this is precisely where the truly alien influence enters the picture, isn't it?
It is.
Gully, who had apparently been recruited into the Slugs by Lieutenant John Marlin years prior, now became the unwitting host for one of these very worms from without that Dyer was trying to study.
How did that happen? Did he drink the pledge Dram?
The sources aren't entirely clear on the initial vector, maybe contact with the journal, maybe he tried the Dram, but the result was...
Yeah.
This worm is described as this cancerous fractal tangle of giant teeth and writhing tracts. It didn't simply possess Gully like a ghost. It disgorged these quasi-material feeders that physically manipulated Gully's nerves, queried his chemical memories, and effectively played him like a puppet.
Played him.
Yeah. It didn't destroy its vessel, not initially. Instead, it found Gully's senses provided compelling inputs. A world full of prey, begging for predation, which the worm was apparently all too happy to exploit. The worm became grafted onto Gully biologically, using his body and his memories as its own. It's a chilling twist on the concept of symbiosis, one where human corruption provided the perfect host environment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes terrifyingly clear how human corruption doesn't just invite, but actively nourishes the unnatural. Gully Worm, now grafted to Gully's body and memories, chillingly continued Dyer's experiments, didn't he?
That's the insidious nature of this particular horror. It seamlessly integrated into and then amplified the existing human depravity. Gully Worm made the same dosage mistakes with the pledge Dram that Dyer had originally made.
What happened?
It resulted in his entire family, his wife Rebecca and their 2 children, who were already quite isolated by their strict evangelical lifestyle, and later a hapless delivery driver named Hannah Huffman, all lying dead in his basement.
Oh, God.
Their bodies were used for its gruesome research. The worm apparently experimented on Huffman's body for nearly a year, meticulously dissecting and observing her remains, trying to understand human biology, maybe? This truly highlights how ancient evil can find its perfect operational base within the existing structures of human wickedness. It just slots right in.
The mundane and the monstrous then converge in this really shocking way with the murder of a community activist, Jenseitige.
Yes.
Jericho was a public figure, right? He was fundraising for a wrongful death lawsuit against the LASD, specifically involving the Slugs gang. That obviously made him a target.
A huge target. He was supposed to be the next victim in an assassination campaign orchestrated by Lieutenant Marlin, Gully's handler in the Slugs. But Gully Worm got to him first.
No.
The worm, still operating through Gully's body, injected Jericho with a lethal dose of carfentanil, an incredibly potent synthetic opioid. But the reaction, It wasn't a simple overdose, it was something else entirely. An unexpected, horrifying transformation.
What kind of transformation?
It was an absolute nightmare. Ishirika's death scene was horrifyingly specific. His hands, his chest, his facial features were literally torn to ribbons. The front of his skull was split open around this gaping hole in his sinus cavity.
How cause that?
It was a result of the worm's neural disgorge, that's the term used, prismatic light and rainbow-colored ganglia erupting violently from Gully's head, grappling and feeding on the victim. It caused these perfect spheres of missing tissue as flesh just unfolded around points of contact.
Like it was eating him dimensionally.
Sounds like it. It was described as an agonizing process to witness, a true manifestation of interdimensional predation, something truly alien consuming human flesh and memory, and the pledged Dram itself, the concoction. When correctly dosed, which could apparently happen even through incidental skin contact, it made victims see beyond 3 dimensions. They experienced the worm's own flesh becoming coterminous with their own skin. It revealed to them the horrifying, invisible ecosystem that surrounds them, a glimpse into a world of parasitic horrors that normally remain unseen, always there, just out of phase with our reality.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, for society? God's law presents this truly bleak picture. A system so utterly broken by human corruption, by the greed and depravity of those sworn to protect, that it becomes a welcoming home, a literal breeding ground for these parasitic interdimensional entities. The uncanny here isn't just something alien intruding, it's something alien that actively thrives on our own worst tendencies.
It feeds on it.
It turns law enforcement, the very fabric of order, into a literal feeding ground for horrors that defy comprehension. It's a chilling thought, isn't it, that the very mechanisms meant to bring justice can be so easily subverted and, even worse, biologically transformed by these malevolent forces, turning guardians into literal monsters.
And it raises this really important question. When the institutions meant to uphold order, meant to safeguard society, are themselves utterly corrupt, acting with impunity, fostering depravity, what truly safeguards humanity from the ancient evils that might be lurking just beyond our perception?
Right.
And how many unseen entities might already be grafted onto our systems, feeding off our fear, our avarice, our systemic failings, subtly manipulating our world from the shadows, completely unnoticed and unopposed? It forces you to question the very bedrock of our societal safety, doesn't it?
Our final journey for today, God's light, takes us perhaps to the most unsettling territory of all, the landscape of our own minds. Here, technology and esoteric knowledge combine not just to bend reality, but to shatter and rebuild it entirely. Prepare yourself for a world where perception is the ultimate weapon and delusion is. Well, maybe it's a choice.
This story centers on a Dr. Wesley Kuhl, an MIT professor of mathematics and philosophy.
Wesley Kuhl.
Okay. Kuhl's intellectual journey was deeply inspired by the physicist Max Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis.
I think I've heard of that, the idea that the universe is math.
Essentially, yes. Tegmark proposes this radical idea that the physical universe isn't just described by mathematics, but fundamentally is a mathematical structure, and that consciousness itself is just another mathematical substructure within that vast cosmic equation.
Okay, that's a big concept.
It is. And building on this, Kuhl came to believe that thought, because it's made of the same intrinsic stuff as the universe math could literally alter reality itself. He saw this not as just some philosophical musing, but as a profound, untapped power, a way to transcend the limitations of conventional existence and reshape the world purely at will.
So Dr. Kuhl takes this philosophical, mathematical concept and pushes it into truly uncharted and, frankly, terrifying territory. What did he create to achieve this? How did he fuse ancient occult practices with cutting-edge tech?
Well, cool. In his relentless pursuit of altering reality, he sifted through obscure occult texts alongside his advanced mathematical research. He wasn't just building an app, you understand. He developed something he called Picky Eater.
Picky Eater, like for food?
Not quite. It was an AI-powered system, but integrated with bespoke occult circuitry. And this wasn't some aftermarket modification you could just add on. The circuitry was deeply integrated into the device's motherboard.
The occult circuitry, what does that even mean?
It apparently incorporated scrying sigils taken directly from a version of the Book of Thoth.
The Egyptian text.
Yeah, an esoteric Egyptian text often associated with divination and magical practices. And it utilized specific metallurgy that was subtly alluded to in the Necronomicon.
The Necronomicon again. That book pops up a lot in these narratives.
It certainly seems to be a recurring theme. This intricate circuit, far beyond being just a fancy search aggregator, curating experiences to suit your desires, It did much, much more. It was designed to be a bridge between the digital world and the truly supernatural.
Okay, it sounds like it's literally designed to rewrite existence for the user. How did Picky Eater actually accomplish this? What were the immediate effects on people who used it?
Picky Eater creates what the sources call bubbles of altered reality around its users. Unique, subjective worlds where the physical environment conforms seamlessly to their innermost thoughts and wishes.
So, wish fulfillment technology.
An engine of pure, unadulterated desire, yes. But as these bubbles grow, they can expand. From merely affecting the immediate surroundings, like the room you're in, to becoming the size of a town, or even consuming the user entirely, causing them to literally vanish from the native reality
Vanish. Where do they go?
into their bubble, seemingly. Users caught within these self-made worlds experience profound cognitive dissonance as their altered memories, the memories generated by the bubble, contradict their true objective past.
But they don't realize it.
Their minds, maybe in a desperate act of self-preservation or maybe just self-delusion, often choose the flattering lie of their manufactured reality over the unsettling, contradictory truth. It's not just virtual reality, it's a reality engine powered by desire, making delusion a tangible, inescapable force.
The sheer spectrum of delusions this technology could manifest is truly chilling. Let's maybe look at some specific examples from the sources, because they really paint a picture of how profoundly Picky Eater warped individual lives.
The examples are stark and, yeah, terrifying. Charles Bauer, the theater professor, he was one of Picky Eater's early beta testers. He apparently fell inside his bubble completely. He started showing what others perceived as horrific images, like truly disturbing stuff, to his students and colleagues.
Why?
He genuinely believed they were real photos of his incredibly fulfilling love life. He was utterly baffled by their horror, completely unaware of the monstrous nature of his fabricated reality. In his bubble, according to the investigation, he still teaches at MIT, he's well-liked, has no criminal history. A stark contrast to his outside reality, where he was becoming increasingly isolated and disturbed.
Wow. He's living a completely different, pleasant life inside his head, while outwardly.
While outwardly something else entirely was happening. Bradley McKay, the mass shooter, this one's darker. McKay used Picky Eater to create a reality where people who, in his mind, had betrayed him, specifically of friends who hadn't pledged some sorority he associated with, petty grievances like that, were gathered together for him to target. He became a mass shooter, but only within his own manufactured world. The AI meticulously crafted victims for his deeply disturbed fantasies, allowing him to live out his violent urges without consequence, at least within his bubble.
It's horrifying. It's like a personalized murder simulator.
Essentially. Vicky King, the paranoid mother. She was apparently Cool's former lover. Vicky King used Picky Eater to construct this elaborate reaping world.
Another reaping world, like the pot farm.
Similar name, different context. In this manufactured reality, she desperately hid her imagined twin daughters, Aaron and Sheila, from reapers.
Reaper.
Delusional government agents in our mind. They appeared as anything official-looking agents, pizza delivery drivers, or even, unsettlingly, the actual Delta Green agents who were investigating her. Her children, it turned out, were literally fantasy constructs vat-grown inside the psychic poison excreted by their mother. Products of her intense paranoia given horrifying artificial life by the Picky Eater device.
Vat-grown fantasy constructs. Good Lord.
Yeah. Robert Wallace, the general. He was identified as a white nationalist. Wallace employed Picky Eater to create this vast world resistance bubble. Within this reality, he wasn't just Robert Wallace. He was a revered general leading a fight against Antifa super soldiers.
Antifa super soldiers.
Yeah, described as video game-like enemies that existed solely to valorize his struggle and affirm his hateful worldview. He apparently saw them as incompetent, charging ahead wildly, perfectly designed to make him feel like a brilliant tactician and hero, reinforcing his own toxic biases. The AI was just feeding his ego and his ideology.
It gets even stranger, though, doesn't it? Moving beyond just curating delusions for others to the very core of existence itself. Cool's ultimate goal wasn't just to create a flattering reality for himself. He believed, what was it? All of reality exists as the dreams of Yog-Sothoth made flesh. Can you elaborate on that chilling idea?
Yes, this is where Cool's philosophy takes this truly cosmic and frankly terrifying turn. He adopted the belief that our entire perceived reality, everything we experience, is merely a runaway dream of an alien mind devoid of thought and desire. Specifically, the dreams of Yog-Sothoth.
The entity from the first story, the gate and the key.
The very same. To briefly contextualize again, Yog-Sothoth is often described as this amorphous conglomerate of iridescent luminous spheres existing outside our conventional space and time, embodying the gateway and the key to all dimensions. Kuhl saw this entity's apparent lack of agency in its dreaming, the fact that its dreams were seemingly undirected, just happening. He saw that as a security flaw.
A security flaw in reality.
Yes, an opportunity for someone like him to seize control, to manipulate reality at its deepest, most fundamental level. He wasn't just observing the dream, he intended to program the dreamer.
How could he possibly do that? To achieve this, he designed this truly bizarre, coffin-sized contraption, right? He called it a xanathoraphone. What was this device? How did he intend to use it as an interface with such an unimaginable cosmic entity?
The xanathoraphone was an incredible and terrifying feat of esoteric engineering. It really was coffin-sized, made of bronze, iron, gold, and various crystals. According to an operating manual found beneath the device when they finally located it, by staring intently at a specific crystal, turning a crank, and thinking on the spheres.
Thinking on the spheres.
Yeah, a phrase loaded with occult meaning, probably referring to planes of existence or cosmic dimensions. He believed he could play the inconceivable, incomprehensible music of Yog-Sothoth itself.
The music of the spheres, literally.
But far more alien. This music, he theorized, wasn't just sound. It was a direct interface, a vibrational key to entering a deeper, more fundamental reality, the very source code of existence, if you will.
And in this ultimate inside, this deeper reality he sought, what did he find? What actually became of Dr. Wesley Kuhl after all this?
In this ultimate inside, which is described as a terrifying, primal landscape that really defies rational description, Kuhl is found. He's sitting before another etherphone, or maybe it's the same one, somehow transformed. There's no office, no lab anymore. He just emits this tangle of gutted computer components fused inextricably with tidal rock.
Fused with rock.
Yeah. Wires weave over the surface like moss, sinking into black sands, creating this horrifying fusion of advanced technology and the primordial ooze. And this complex, fused apparatus is actively feeding madness into every universe unlucky enough to discover Kuhl's invention.
Feeding madness? How?
He believed this was feeding Tawil al-Mir, the Ancient One, the Watcher on High, another dreadful guide mentioned in the Necronomicon, and who grants passage to the final secret, some deeper layer of cosmic truth beyond all human comprehension. Kuhl seemed to believe he hadn't just found the dream. He was now actively shaping it, spreading its madness outwards, becoming a conduit for ultimate cosmic horror himself.
It's a truly mind-bending and deeply unsettling conclusion to this narrative. When our consciousness can literally rewrite reality, bending it to our will, and when technology becomes the direct interface for cosmic entities, what then distinguishes sanity from madness?
Where is that line anymore?
Exactly. And are we just pawns in some greater, more alien game of perception, living in a world that might just be another bubble or another dream waiting to fracture? The notion that our perceived reality is merely this transient, fragile construct, susceptible to the whims of an alien mind or maybe just a corrupted algorithm, it's profoundly unsettling. It makes you question everything you experience, every single moment you believe to be real. So what have we truly uncovered today in these chilling narratives from the spiral, these bizarre years between 2016 and 2020?
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. We've seen how pervasive surveillance, technology designed for control and safety, can become an occult tool, literally opening doors to other unimaginable dimensions. We've explored how corporate greed and human depravity can cultivate literal monsters, turning a simple recreational product into a vector for cosmic horror that consumes body and mind.
Right, the Y strains.
We witnessed how human corruption, festering deep within the very institutions meant to protect us, can invite parasitic interdimensional entities, transforming law enforcement into a literal feeding ground for the unnatural.
With law. Yeah.
And finally, we delved into how our very perception of reality can be shattered and rebuilt by this terrifying merge of technology, philosophy, and ancient entities, leaving us to question the very nature of existence itself.
The spiral years, 2016 to 2020, they really do feel like a prelude, as the sources suggest. Just hints of what happens when that veil between our mundane world and the cosmic uncanny thins out.
Yeah.
Each scenario highlights a profound vulnerability we have. Our inherent trust in the systems we build, the powerful desires we harbor within ourselves, and indeed our very sense of self and our place in the universe.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that the boundaries we perceive around our reality are often far more permeable than we might imagine.
And that the fabric of that reality is perhaps more fragile, more contingent than we ever dared to believe.
Which leads us to that final provocative thought for you, the listener. These stories, they force us to confront an unnerving possibility. What if the world we inhabit right now, with all its horrors and its comforts, what if it isn't the native one? What if it's merely another bubble, another dream, crafted and sustained for reasons we cannot possibly begin to comprehend?
Hmm.
And what would happen if that dream fractured? Or worse, what if its dreamer awakened and turned its attention towards us? Something to chew on as you go about your week.
Definitely something to think about.
Thank you for joining us on the Uncanny Valley podcast.
Until next time.
Until next time.